Chapter 35. As they walked, a curtain of heavy clouds swept in from the north and covered the moon. It started to rain. The raindrops pattered on the field in a soothing rhythm. It was almost meditative. Maddy's mind drifted back over the events of the past few hours. She could scarcely believe what she had witnessed. But some things were too strange to imagine. Gareth was a wolf. He was her wolf. He had a lot of explaining to do. But first, she just wanted to get back to the car. It took them probably a half hour to reach the cornfield, not as long a walk as Maddy imagined. Gareth carried her out of the forest, then back to the clearing in the maze with the metal pole. Gareth set her down gently inside the clearing.
Wait here. I gotta find my pants.
He crossed to a pile of wet clothes and started pulling on his muddy jeans. Maddy stood in the rain and waited. She kept flinching at the slightest rustle in the corn. Because of the storm, the whole field sounded full of werewolves, but she didn't see any signs of life. She and Gareth were alone. The rain washed out any evidence of the fight, but her memories were still vivid. As much as she wished it was all a bad dream, she knew it was real. Her imagination wasn't that original. As she thought back over the events of the night, more details began to emerge. She gnawed on her bottom lip and thought. Actually, she had a lot of questions. She recalled the jackal-looking man creeping up on her in the parking lot, his nostrils flared.
I smell wolf blood. A young female just beginning the change. My nose never lies. Looks like our rogue alpha is hiding a secret.
Now that the night was calm, she was recalling more of the chase. A little wolf girl, they called her. Like she was a prize. She clutched at the edge of her damp shirt, her stomach tying itself into knots. Wolf girl? Gareth returned to her side, wearing a pair of muddy jeans belted at the waist. His shirt and shoes were missing. His eyes swept over her, checking her, assessing her. He noticed the thoughtful frown on her face.
What is it?
Those men who tried to kidnap me. Why did they come after me? Gareth paused. He looked at a loss for words.
That's gonna be a complicated conversation, Mads. We should sit down and talk, but let's get out of these cornfields first.
Can you just answer my question? Gareth gazed down at her, his eyes gold in the darkness. He reached out and lightly caressed her cheek. She leaned into his touch instinctively, seeking comfort.
Trust me, Mads. I want to explain everything to you. But let's get somewhere safe first. Then we'll talk, I promise.
She nodded. Yeah, they were standing in the middle of a muddy field, drenched by pouring rain. This really wasn't the ideal place for a deep conversation, no matter how much she wanted to strangle all the answers out of him. She had a feeling whatever was coming would knock her on her ass. Gareth handed her something in the darkness. It was the sopping wet bear from the shooting gallery.
I tried to get all the water out, but we should run it through the wash. Sorry, baby girl.
It's fine, I still like it. She clutched the bear to her chest, more comfort. She suddenly wished she could turn back the clock. Go back a few hours in time to the haunted manor, hanging out with Bee and Vin. She wondered if Bee had made it home all right, or if Finn invited her back to his place. Now that Maddy thought about it, it seemed pretty obvious that's where their evening was headed. She wanted to text Bee everything, but she wondered if her new best friend would be able to handle all this. Werewolves? Really? Would Bee believe her? Well, they had seen a ghost together in the haunted manor, and Bee believed in a lot of weird stuff. Why wouldn't she believe in werewolves too? Maddy reached for her jacket pocket, then stopped. She groaned quietly. Shit, my phone.
You dropped it in the parking lot.
You're right, I remember now. Fuck, it's probably long gone.
Nah, I threw it in the car.
Maddy blinked up at him. Wait, really? You grabbed it for me?
Yeah. Come on, let's go.
He turned away from her, scanning the cornfield for a path that would lead them back to the parking lot. Gareth moved at a steady pace through the corn. The rain was pouring down harder, turning the field to a muddy mess. It drenched their clothes until Maddy felt like a drowned rat. Gareth was silent, his jaw clenched tight with pain. He didn't bother with the maze but cut straight through the rows. He didn't seem lost at all. It only took them 20 minutes to reach the other side of the field. Maddy breathed a sigh of relief when the cornfields fell behind them and they entered the open air. The parking lot resembled a miniature lake. It was all water, gravel, and mud. Gareth carried her through the giant puddle towards the Camaro. It was the only car in the lot. He set her down next to the passenger side door. He leaned against the side of the car as he fished his keys out of his pocket. He almost dropped them. "Gareth, let me help you," Maddy said again.
There's nothing you can do.
"I can drive." A stubborn look passed over his face, but Maddy ignored him. She held out her hand. "Give me your keys." "You look like shit. What if you pass out on the road?" His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue with her. After a pause, he tossed her the keys. Maddy unlocked the door and got him into the passenger seat. Then she circled around to the other side of the car and got behind the wheel. She took a moment to adjust her mirrors and her seat, like he had taught her. Then she took a deep breath. With a little prayer, she put the key in the ignition and turned it.
You gotta hit the brakes before you put it in drive.
Gareth reminded her. "I know," she grumbled, but she was quietly thankful he said something. Luckily, it was after 1 a.m. and the lot was empty. She pulled forward and circled her way slowly around the giant puddle, following the signs that pointed to the exit.
Turn on the high beams.
"How do I do that?"
It's on the knob next to the steering wheel.
Maddy didn't know what he meant. She fumbled around for a moment, accidentally turning on the windshield wipers and her blinker. Then she finally found the headlights. She turned them all the way up. She guided the car onto the highway. The rain poured down and she turned her wipers up on high. Fip, fip, fip. Still, she could barely see out the windshield. She looked in both directions. There was no traffic this late at night. She turned onto the black road through the farmland. Maddy drove carefully, holding her breath, her knuckles white on the wheel. She guided the Camaro down Fruitdale Road, away from Beaumont Farms. Every mile between her and the corn maze made her feel better. As she drove, she took quick, anxious glances at Gareth in the seat next to her. He leaned away from her, his elbow propped up on the door and his hand bracing his forehead. His eyes were closed. He was sweating profusely. Finally, she asked, "Are you in pain?"
Keep your eyes on the road. You're doing good.
He pointed at an upcoming intersection, and she turned where Gareth instructed her. She was totally lost. She wasn't brave enough to go over 35 miles per hour, even though the speed limit was 55. It was pitch black and her high beams didn't reach that far. The farmland was full of little back roads. Every time she reached an intersection, she found herself slowing down and squinting through the rain, looking for street signs. The country roads ran off into the darkness, disappearing into hills and fields. Maddy felt like she had entered another nightmare. God, when will this horrible night end? She couldn't see a damn thing out the windshield. She prayed to the gods she didn't drive into a ditch. On a rainy night like this, all manner of things could go wrong, including mudslides and flooding as the river swelled up.
Turn up here.
Maddy bit her lip. She turned onto a ramp and merged onto Highway 20, and she felt a bit of tension ease away. As she entered the highway, she saw a green sign that read, Black River 15 miles. At least now she knew where she was going. She felt more confident on the empty highway, and the Camaro picked up speed. 15 miles passed in the blink of an eye. Maddy barely registered the drive. She gazed out the front window in silence as the windshield wipers flipped back and forth. She knew she was heading into some strange state of shock. But she couldn't seem to pull herself out of it. Keep it together. almost there." Gareth pointed to the exit she should take. Then he directed her through the silent streets of Black River. He made her drive a short stint down Main Street. They passed a cop car parked at the side of the road, which was the scariest moment, since Maddy didn't have her driver's permit with her.
Calm down, it's fine. Cop has no reason to pull you over.
They need a reason?
Sure they do.
Then she was driving past her school and turning between streets of residential houses. The neighborhood looked familiar, though everything was a little different behind the wheel. Then suddenly she was pulling in front of Gareth's house. A miniature river flowed down his driveway into the storm drain in the street. It reminded her of the little streams and waterfalls she saw sometimes running down the mountainside through the forest. She didn't see any other cars or people outside at this time of night. The house was dark and the street was silent.
Good job. Don't turn off the car yet. Let's park the car inside. Don't want anyone seeing we're here.
Okay, I will. Maddy glanced over at Gareth, a little worried. He was bracing himself against the dashboard, his jaw tight with pain. She pulled into his driveway and stopped, the engine idling at a low rumble. Gareth opened the car door and stepped out into the rain. Then he walked up to his garage where he unlocked a padlock and slid up the door. In the headlights of the Camaro, she got a good look at the cuts running up his back. Shit. He really made love to her like that? With his back all torn up? Maddy waited behind the wheel on pins and needles as he unlocked the garage door and slid it open. Then he waved for her to pull forward. Bit by bit, he guided her into the garage. The motion detector lights flipped on automatically. Maddy blinked, her eyes dazzled by the sudden brightness. She eased the Camaro forward, holding her breath the whole time. Gareth's garage was filled with cardboard boxes and workout equipment. A bike hung from the wall. An unplugged freezer was buried under a toolbox and a stack of totes. She didn't want to accidentally hit anything. Gareth motioned for her to stop after she had cleared the entrance by a few feet. Then he closed the garage door behind her and locked up. Maddy rested her forehead against the steering wheel and took a deep breath. Fuck. Her muscles were so tense from the drive, she felt her shoulders cramping. Her hands trembled a bit. She wanted to throw herself out of the car. Almost done with this nightmare. Maddy pulled the keys out the ignition, but they were stuck. What the hell? She muttered. She tried to yank the keys out a few times, but they were jammed solid. Stupid piece of junk! She cursed. Fuck, she was about to lose her mind. Gareth opened the driver's side door. He noticed her struggling and quickly assessed the situation. Then he leaned past her, moved the gear shift into park, and pulled out the keys.
You gotta put the car in park first.
He said with a slight grin. Maddy stared up at him, tears of frustration shimmering in her eyes. Oh, she said stupidly.
That's all right. You did a good job, baby girl. You got us home safe. Now let's go inside and get cleaned up.
Maddy felt dumb. After all that, she had forgotten to put the car in park? She almost started laughing. Fuck, she hated driving. Gareth slipped his keys into his pocket and undid Maddy's seatbelt, then he helped her out of the car. At the last minute, she remembered to grab the little brown bear from the back seat. Maybe it was a little juvenile to carry a stuffed bear around with her. But after all the panic and terror, it was a small comfort. Security bear, she thought. I must be 5 years old. So, what now?
Now, we shower, then first aid, then fucking sleep. We'll keep the lights off and the door locked. I don't think the Greyridge pack will come after us here. Not tonight, at least.
The Greyridge what?
Pack. Wolf pack.
He gave her a searching look, taking note of her pale skin and hollow eyes. Then he brushed a strand of hair from her face and tucked it behind her ear.
Never mind. You look pretty shaken up. How about walking? Can you walk? Let me look at your ankle.
He tugged up her pant leg, revealing her swollen left ankle. Maddy winced looking at it. The injury hadn't bothered her much in the car, since she didn't need her left foot to drive. But in the white halogen lighting of the garage, her ankle looked bruised and nasty. Gareth hissed when he saw it.
We gotta get your shoe off.
Maddy flinched when he touched her foot. Shit. Just the brush of his finger sent a stab of pain all the way up to her knee. Is it broken? She asked.
Maybe. We're gonna find out.
He loosened the laces on her Converse sneaker and tried to take it off, but stopped when she whimpered.
Well, shit. Maybe we'll hold off for now.
Gareth straightened up. He scooped her into his arms without warning, then he carried her across the garage. Maddy didn't try to resist. She was exhausted and didn't feel like hopping around on one foot. Gareth seemed concerned that the Greyridge gang, or pack, might follow them to his house. That bothered Maddy. She tensed up as Gareth unlocked the door that connected the garage to the house. Are we safe here?
I don't think we're safe anywhere at the moment, babe. But we're probably safer here than most places. I got plenty of guns. There's a small arsenal at your disposal.
He grinned at her, and she almost laughed. I can't believe you're joking right now, she said.
I'm dead serious. There's weapons all over this house.
Then he unlocked the door and pushed it open. A warm gust of air hit Maddy's face, along with the familiar scent of Gareth's house.
Home sweet home.
Thank you for listening to Heart of the Wolf, a steamy paranormal romance novel by author A. Mariposa. This chapter is abridged to comply with YouTube's content guidelines. For the full delicious version of Gareth and Maddy's steamy encounter, please purchase the print or ebook from Amazon.com, or better yet, buy the unabridged audiobook now available on Google Play. Link in description below. Chapter 36. As Gareth and Maddy stepped inside from the garage, the heater turned on somewhere in the dark house. The sound was strangely comforting and normal. Maddy recognized the hallway, the doors to the bedrooms, and the old brown carpet. The familiar smell of Gareth's home filled her nose, a bit like Old Spice and vanilla air freshener. She immediately relaxed. She knew this place. It was safe and warm. Across from her, an open door led to the laundry room, and Gareth carried her in that direction. Maddy was exhausted. She wanted to take a hot shower and go to bed, but that wasn't going to happen immediately. They still had a lot to talk about. She sensed the tension running through Gareth's shoulders. His jaw was tight. Was he worried? In pain? Annoyed at her? Or just exhausted? She could feel his mind churning. A heavy conversation loomed before them. Gareth flipped on the lights in the laundry room and set her down on the linoleum floor. Maddy held onto his arms for balance, favoring her left foot. Then she froze. She stood inches away from Gareth's broad chest. Under the fluorescent light, her eyes traveled over his tattoos, up his shoulders to his masculine neck. She thought she saw steam rising from his muscles. He was so hot. Had this man really taken her virginity? A wave of desire rushed through her. Shit. She wanted him. Badly. Maddy closed her eyes as her mind flew back to the forest, where he had bedded her among the moss and ferns, their bodies wrapped together in the rich earth. She could feel him entering her all over again. They had mated like wild animals, totally primitive, his powerful body dominating her own. Now she craved the comfort of his body. She wanted to feel secure in his arms. Her blood simmered. Gareth noticed her wanton gaze. He leaned down and kissed her lips, his mouth warm and soft, his stubble grazing her chin. She reached up and touched his face, deepening the kiss, leaning up on her tiptoes as much as her bruised ankle would allow. He hooked her pants with his fingers and dragged her against his body. He pressed his hips against her, and she felt the unmistakable bulge in his pants.
You want to go again?
Yes. I mean, I do, but we need to talk.
We can talk tomorrow.
His voice was deep, his eyes half-hooded. She was in his house, in his arms. It would be so easy to say yes. She kissed him for a long minute, heat pooling in her belly. Then she gently pushed away. No. I think we need to talk about what happened tonight. Maddy regretted her words as she said them. It would be so easy to drag him down the hallway, back to his bedroom. She wanted that distraction, badly, but she had too many unanswered questions. Gareth sighed, resting his forehead against hers.
All right. First things first. You're soaking and we both stink. We need a shower, so let's get these muddy clothes off. I'm gonna get the water going. Then I'll help you.
Maddy looked at him skeptically. I don't need help taking a shower.
With that ankle, I'm not gonna risk you falling, baby girl. I don't got railings. Now, get naked.
He flashed her a devilish grin. Then he stood up and left her in the laundry room. After a moment, she heard the shower turn on. A cloud of hot steam started to seep into the hallway. Maddy appreciated the moist heat in the air after the freezing cold rain of the cornfields. It was kind of pleasant, a bit like a sauna. Maddy pulled her muddy clothes off for the second time. It felt good to remove the damp, cold, dirt-smeared t-shirt from her body. She tossed the shirt in the washer. Then she untied her Converse sneakers. She pulled off her right shoe. Then she gingerly tugged off the left shoe. She undid all the laces and pulled the tongue out to loosen it up. She finally got her shoe off, biting her lip so hard it bled. Fuck, that hurts. Then she stripped off her wet socks. She unbuttoned her pants and peeled them off. She threw all of her wet clothes into the washing machine along with the toy bear. Then she sighed. She felt like she had accomplished something. A little metal stool stood in the corner of the laundry room. Maddy sat on it, totally naked, and waited for Gareth to come get her. She heard his shoes come off, then his pants dropped to the ground. The heavy clunk of his wallet and keys. The shower curtain rustled. As she waited, she checked between her legs with her fingers. She felt a little bruised up inside, in a delicious, naughty, sadistic way. I had sex with a werewolf. Oh God. Was it wrong? Right? What the hell am I doing? She had stopped asking that question a while ago. She felt like she didn't know herself anymore. Maddy hunched forward on the stool, her head almost between her knees. This was not how she had imagined the end of her evening. Gareth's shadow fell over her a minute later. He was naked except for a black towel around his waist. She didn't know if she felt relieved or a little disappointed. He tossed his dirty clothes in the washing machine, then added a cap full of soap from the bottle of detergent on the shelf. He switched the knob to heavy duty and started the load. Then Gareth knelt down in front of her.
You doing all right? You look a bit pale.
Maddy indicated her ankle. Do you think it's broken? He gently took her swollen foot in his hands. Maddy cringed. She hated being touched when she was injured. Her anxiety spiked as she tried to pull her foot away.
We had a lot of foot injuries in the desert, lots of potholes and uneven roads. Do you feel any tingling? Numbness? Any sharp pain?
She realized he was referring to a rock. Gareth gently began pushing his thumbs into her swollen flesh. When he got up to the ligament around her ankle, Maddy flinched. There. Stop.
All right, I'm stopping.
He set her foot back down. He put his hands on his knees and looked up at her with a reassuring smile.
Likely just a sprain, little girl. Let's wrap it up and ice it. But first, let's get you in the shower.
She bit her lip and nodded. She still wasn't used to being naked in front of him, especially under the harsh light of the laundry room. It was a bit intimidating. Gareth stood up and helped her to her feet. Then he picked her up and carried her into the bathroom. The shower was running and the entire room was steamed up. The heat felt good on her sore muscles. The chill of the rain was beginning to leave her bones. Gareth set her down inside the stall under the flow from the shower head. He entered the shower next to her, towering over her body. She raised her arm to shield her tits from his gaze, though due to their generous size, it was futile.
So modest, Mads, it's cute. Now stand still. I want to take a look at you.
I'm fine. Just my ankle is sprained.
Let me see you.
Maddy didn't know why, but when he used that voice, so firm and patient, she felt an instinctive urge to obey. His hand landed on the indent of her waist, and he turned her. He brushed her hair over her shoulder to get it out of the way. His hand gently trailed down her back.
You got a few scratches here, probably running through the woods,
he said, his hand sweeping across her shoulder blades.
A few bruises. That was probably me. Sorry if I was rough.
Maddy sucked in a slight breath as he ran his hand down the gentle slope of her spine. His palm settled on the lump of scar tissue above her left hip from long ago. He touched her with possessiveness, like it was his right. Despite herself, she felt a twinge between her legs. Her body remembered him. It responded easily to his touch. Her nipples swelled pleasantly. She waited, submitting to his inspection. She didn't know what else to do. When he turned around to grab the shampoo bottle, she caught sight of the bloody scratches all over his muscular back. She flinched at the sight. She felt her mouth go dry. Gareth, you're back.
It's fine. It'll heal up on its own.
It's not fine. Those cuts are huge. Were you stabbed with a knife? We should go to the hospital.
No knife.
Gareth said, rubbing a bit of shampoo between his hands.
Just big claws. They'll look a lot better in the morning.
But your back looks like torn up tissue paper. He grinned ruefully.
You're forgetting something important, babe.
What?
I'm a werewolf.
Maddy went silent. Her left hand curled into a fist and she dropped her eyes. Right, a werewolf. This is insane, she thought again, but here she was rolling with it. Gareth started lathering the shampoo into her hair. She didn't question why he was washing her. And she didn't protest. She submitted, allowing him to do what he wanted. He massaged the shampoo into her red locks, then rinsed out her hair, then applied the conditioner. When he was finished with her hair, he lathered up a washcloth using a bar of soap. Then he ran it over her skin. Her back. Her shoulders. Around her stomach. He spent a long time washing her between the legs, his hands massaging her smooth skin, making her squirm. Gareth kissed her again. His warm lips quickly became the focus of her world. She closed her eyes, feeling the caress of his soft mouth. Then he dipped his head down and took one of her swollen nipples between his teeth. He teased it with little bites. When he released her breast, she saw hickeys covering her pale skin from his mouth. With a gasp, Maddy felt his stiff member press into her soft belly. Did he seriously want to go again? Gareth, He reached a hand down and began to massage her between the legs. The sensation wiped all thoughts from her head. She felt like he could have gone for a long time, but she was sore and he knew it. He groaned after only a few minutes, his shoulders stiffened. She heard his breathy growl as he swelled bigger inside. She whimpered as he unloaded into her a second time. The sensations were vivid and exquisite. She clamped down on him as the warmth of his seed filled her. She didn't expect her body to respond like that. A wave of pleasure rippled through her. When he pulled out, she swooned forward. Her body was filled with a warm, buttery glow. She leaned against the shower wall. He gently grabbed her arms, holding her up so she didn't fall. Then he kissed her forehead.
You all right?
Yeah, it was good, but now I'm really sore.
It'll hurt the first few times, until you get used to me.
She felt the possessiveness in his words. He owned her, he knew it. A delicious shiver traveled up her body. She didn't mind being his woman. She was totally okay with that. Chapter 37. Maddy was delirious by the time he finished his play. He cleaned her up, wiping down her body gently. He washed himself again as well. Then he turned off the shower. He toweled her off in the bathroom like a pet, refusing her attempts to do it herself. Then he lifted her into his strong arms and carried her into the bedroom, where he laid her down on his king-sized mattress. Maddy hardly remembered leaving the shower. She slowly became aware of her surroundings as she lay in bed, floating back into her tender body. She was sore from head to toe. The skin on her thighs was chafed. Damn. Parts of her ached that she had never felt before. Outside the window, a thin strip of silver light was beginning to appear on the horizon. Geez. The comforter was soft and cool on her skin. Maddy thought she would fall asleep the moment her head hit the pillow, but she found herself lying awake, sore and uncomfortable from the long night. She waited, listening as Gareth closed up the house and returned to her side. She tried to sit up when he entered the room, pushing against the mattress for balance. Her arms shook with the effort. Her core muscles ached. She had no strength.
Hey, careful.
He turned on the bedside lamp, then he helped her sit up. He handed her a cup of water and 2 ibuprofen. Maddy laughed at the sight. She felt like an old lady. Fuck, this was embarrassing. Exhausted, she asked. What time is it?
4 a.m.
He climbed under the comforter next to her. Then he pulled her against his clean, naked body. He smelled fresh from the shower. His big tatted arms encircled her, and he cradled her head against his chest. She found herself snuggled against him, their legs entwined, her entire body buzzing. Lying against his naked body made her heart flutter. Unexpectedly, she felt shy. She had never cuddled naked with a man before, and Gareth wasn't just any man. The smooth feeling of his warm skin made her breathless. God, how many times had she orgasmed that night? She couldn't count them all.
So how do you feel?
I'm so sore. I can't move.
Sorry, babe. I kind of lost control.
Kind of. You almost killed me.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Maddy groaned. A compliment? How was she supposed to survive this kind of sex? What if he wanted to do it again? The thought filled her with a sweet, quivery sort of trepidation. It was a little confusing. I might be a little scared of your cock, she admitted.
There goes my ego.
How about you? How do you feel?
Like I could do it all over again.
Maddy stiffened. Gareth.
Yeah, I'll wait. Maybe an hour. Let you catch your breath.
No, I mean, I hurt.
I'm kidding, Mads. I know I wrecked you.
She snorted with laughter, then winced as her abdomen ached. Full of yourself?
You screamed daddy a dozen times. I call that a gold fucking medal.
Shut up, she grumbled, a stupid smile on her face. Then she rested her head against his chest. As she lay next to him, her mind wandered over the events of the past day. It felt like years had passed since getting ready at Bee's house for the haunted manor, agonizing over what makeup and which outfit to wear. She thought back over their wild night, meeting Rochelle, Andy and Becca, encountering Dean, seeing Gareth win all the fair games. It all seemed perfectly right. Everything after the haunted house, however, belonged in a 1980s B horror movie. Like for real, she might need therapy after this. She could still hear the vivid sound of bones popping and flesh contorting as the men turned into wolves. It made her gut churn. Holy hell. She and Gareth had a lot to talk about. Her body might be exhausted, but her mind was spiraling with questions. She didn't think she could sleep without getting some answers. So, you're a werewolf, she said, testing the waters.
Yeah.
He sounded drowsy but still awake. Maddy felt a little awkward. Talking about werewolves sounded strange to her own ears. Like they were little kids making up a fantasy world. But this was real. So, do you have extra stamina? Like more than a regular person?
Yup, got plenty of that.
Maddy grew more curious. She rolled onto her stomach and propped her head up on her arm, gazing up at him. He glanced down through his dark lashes. Gareth was laying back on his bed, one arm propped behind his head, the other around her shoulders, looking very relaxed. Have you always been a werewolf? You weren't bitten as a baby or something? His eyes flickered over her with some amusement.
I was born like this. The bite thing is a myth. You gotta inherit the gene.
Oh, so last weekend in the woods, I got lost with Joker. There was this big black wolf, seems kinda obvious, but I was wondering.
Yep, I came by to check on you.
She felt a little chill, her guardian wolf. Maddy started piecing together some of the events of the past week. She felt like she had a fresh new perspective on everything. She asked him. Then, those thugs that got attacked by a wolf outside my trailer. The wolf I heard in the woods. That was you, too?
Yeah, that was me.
So, you killed those men.
They were werewolves, lycanthropes, wolf shifters. It's not the same, Mads. But yeah, I did.
So, that's like murder. She said before falling silent. It was crazy to think about. She needed a moment to digest that. Was it still murder if they were werewolves? Or was it more like when one lion kills another lion for survival? He really belonged to a different world. Maddy felt a twinge of anxiety. Sensing her discomfort, Gareth shifted and wrapped both of his big tatted arms around her bare shoulders. He stroked a hand through her long red hair.
Our kind has different laws. They were going to rape you, Mads. It was justified, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat to protect you. Werewolf law permits this kind of killing. A wolf has a right to protect his mate.
Maddy was quiet as she considered his words. Werewolf law. So werewolves had their own law? It was a lot to think about. Human laws were complicated enough. She spoke slowly, piecing it all together. So back in the parking lot at the fair, when those men said it was blood for blood, that's what they meant? They wanted revenge?
Pretty much. That was the Grey Ridge Pack. They're the ones who broke into your trailer. They've been harassing me all week, fucking bastards. They're new to the area. I haven't seen them before.
What about you? Do you have a pack? He gazed down at her, his hands still playing with her long red locks.
Nah, I'm out here on my own. I'm a lone wolf.
Are wolves territorial?
Yes, Mads. Very territorial.
So he was a lone wolf living in Black River, and this was a new pack in the area. It all made a certain amount of sense. They wanted him off their turf, but he was there first. But maybe that was a lot to assume. She really didn't know much about his world. She thought of the men who had attacked them in the parking lot. Wolves fighting against wolves. Gareth said killing those thugs outside her trailer wasn't the same as murder. But it scared her a little. He wasn't human, he was a beast. His existence defied everything she understood about real life. Then she asked, "What do you mean, a wolf has a right to protect his mate?" Gareth stared into her eyes, willing her to understand. Maddy felt her mouth go dry as her thoughts circled back over the night. Those men in the corn maze called me a wolf girl. They called me a treat. They said I was starting to change. She hesitated to say more. She had a feeling his answer would completely change her world. They stared at each other for a silent minute, a bit of tension rising between them. She didn't want to ask her next question, but she pushed forward anyway. "Gareth, why did those men try to kidnap me?"
We don't have to talk about this tonight, Mads. I know you're exhausted.
Fuck that. How am I supposed to sleep with this hanging over me? What if they come back?
You're safe here.
He reassured her. Then he picked up one of her hands and held it, his thumb running over her palm, his fingers intertwining with her own.
Mads, I don't really know how to tell you this. I've thought about it a lot. I even practiced a damn speech. But now here we are, and I don't know what to say.
He seemed uncomfortable. Maybe even nervous? Maddy stared up at his face, trying to understand his expression. He almost looked bashful. Maddy felt the corners of her mouth lift into a grin. Are you getting shy? She asked, amazed. Gareth's eyes darted away. His dark eyebrows instantly lowered.
Ah, shit, Mads.
You are! You're embarrassed! It was disarming, seeing him like this. She wanted to wrap her arms around him in a big hug. She teased him playfully. Why are you so nervous? Is it about the mate thing? You're acting like you're about to propose to me or something. He cleared his throat. Holy shit.
Right, so. You've asked me before why I'm always helping you. Why I came to you that night 5 years ago, when I found you on the mountainside. Do you remember asking me about that?
Maddy's eyes widened. You said you felt like you were meant to meet me. You told me that story about being a lone wolf on the mountain without a pack. And you found a lost little wolf in the woods. So you meant what you said?
Every word.
So then...
You're my life mate, Mads. And you're a wolf, too.
His words struck her. There it is, the bomb she'd been waiting for. It fell on her like Hiroshima. Maddy stared at Gareth with wide eyes, her mouth hanging open. Then a laugh fought its way up her throat. It was a forced sound, pure nerves. All right, sure, I'm a werewolf, but that's impossible because I've never turned into a wolf or anything. So you must be mistaken.
I wouldn't lie to you, Mads.
You're wrong. I'm the opposite of a werewolf. I'm a total sheep, or like, a deer, you know, just some average girl. Maddy could feel her heart racing in her chest. She closed her eyes tight and avoided his penetrating gaze. Gareth explained patiently.
You haven't gone through the change yet, Mads. So of course you wouldn't know that you're a werewolf. But that's gonna start soon. You're showing all the signs.
What signs? What change? I'm totally normal. I'm just a girl living in a shitty trailer in the woods, trying to graduate high school. Maddy wanted to push him away. The whole idea was absurd. This conversation was supposed to be about him, how he was a wolf. This was his problem, not hers. But she couldn't help but look back over the strange events of the past week. Her fainting spells, her sharpened senses. That vision in the woods, when she had actually imagined she was a wolf. It seemed so real. Maybe she was grasping at straws. Maybe she was losing her mind. No. It's not possible.
It's the truth, Mads.
Nope.
Doesn't matter what you think, little girl. It's happening now. This is real. You saw everything tonight. Don't deny it.
I'm not denying werewolves exist. That much is obvious. But I'm not a werewolf. And I'm definitely not your life mate, whatever that means.
Yes, you are. I was going to tell you eventually, but I wanted you to get to know me first. I wanted you to trust me.
He studied her face, trying to read her expression.
Don't be scared. It's just new. That's all.
So what's a life mate then?
It's a bond. It's like two wolves destined to meet. It's part of our survival. It's instinctive.
How can I be your life mate if we only just had sex? He stifled a laugh. Then he grinned like she had said something cute.
Sex is just sex, Mads. Life mates are different. It's some mystical shit, like two lost souls coming together by fate. There's some special power involved. I don't know how it all works myself, but maybe we can figure it out together.
Two lost souls brought together by fate? Maddy echoed, a little shocked by those words. She really didn't want to consider it could be true. But how many times had she thought of Gareth and herself that way? How many times had she been lost up on that mountain, and how many times had he guided her home? It was like they were destined to meet. Oh God, was she actually buying into this? Maybe the Lifemate thing was real? Maybe it was their thing? She didn't believe in fairy tales. It was really hard to swallow. I don't know, but I can't rush into this. This is a lot, Gareth. I don't think I'm ready for it. I mean, werewolves? I just want to be a normal girl. My goal this year is to graduate high school. After that, I thought I'd travel a bit, take a bus down to the city and be someone else for a while. I don't want to be a werewolf.
You can still do all that. Wolf or not.
Gareth considered her for a long moment, his hand thoughtfully running through her hair. He searched her eyes. Then he sighed.
All right, sure, Mads. It's a bit too much for you right now, I get that. So maybe you're not a wolf. Maybe I'm wrong. You got a point. You haven't undergone the change yet. So maybe it won't happen for a while.
Maybe it will never happen. Maybe I'm not a werewolf at all, Maddy pointed out. Gareth's eyes flashed.
If you want to believe that, I'll play.
I don't want to believe anything. I'm just pointing out the facts. I love the idea of being your life mate, but I have to be realistic. It's not like I'm growing a tail or sprouting fur out my ears, so maybe we shouldn't assume anything yet. Gareth studied her with a dissatisfied frown. Maddy knew he wasn't pleased with her attitude. But he couldn't argue with her. Her logic was sound. She knew werewolves existed, she couldn't deny that. She had seen him change form before her eyes. But that didn't mean she was a werewolf, too. Maybe some strange coincidences happened this past week, but she couldn't jump to conclusions. She really just wanted to be a normal girl.
All right, have it your way. Let's forget all this life-mate stuff for now. Maybe it's all a big misunderstanding. Like you said, how do we know you're a wolf for sure until you change?
Maddy felt relieved. She knew he was just saying what she wanted to hear, but it gave her a sense of control. She needed that comfort. She didn't think she could function otherwise.
But I gotta say this. After tonight, we're not just friends. I won't fight off a wolf pack for just some girl. So it's official. You're my girlfriend. I'm your boyfriend. Got it?
Of course, they had already worked this out at the Halloween festival, but Maddy pretended to give it some thought. She scrunched up her nose. Well,
what? Am I gonna have to fuck you into submission?
Maddy's mouth dropped open. She meant to tease him, but his words shocked her. Gareth's head dipped down and his tongue entered her mouth, startling her. The kiss turned hot and heated as he slid his tongue boldly across her own. Heat flared between them. Maddy felt her sore muscles quiver between her legs, an achingly sweet sensation. Then without warning, Gareth rolled over, his tatted arms landing on either side of her head. The bed dipped. His shoulders blocked out the ceiling. Oh shit. Maddy's body flooded with anticipation. She felt sore but definitely willing. For real? How is she aroused right now? He gazed down at her with hooded golden eyes, and she realized what he intended. He wasn't joking, he meant his words. That smoldering look kicked up a storm of butterflies in her stomach. No. She couldn't let him make love to her again. She was too sore, and she was completely exhausted. With a vulnerable expression, Maddy reached up and laid a hand against his masculine face. She felt the prickly brush of his stubble against her palm. All right, yes, Gareth. I'm your girlfriend. Nothing's changed. A tenderness overcame his face that was difficult for her to describe. It was endearing to see his gaze soften. Then he bent his head down and planted a firm kiss on her lips.
Good. Now I think it's time for bed, baby girl.
Their conversation was finished. Gareth reached over and turned off the bedside lamp. Then he resettled onto the mattress and pulled her close to his side, snuggling with her under the soft comforter. A silver glow was visible through the blinds of his bedroom window. The sun was coming up. It had been a long night. With a sigh, Maddy laid her head against his strong chest. She could hear his heartbeat and the rhythmic hush of his breathing. She found herself matching his breath without thinking about it. Their conversation was illuminating, but for now, she felt drunk with exhaustion. Her thoughts moved in lazy spirals, on the fringe of falling asleep. She found herself thinking of the passion of Gareth's lovemaking. She rolled closer to him, resting her head on his chest. No more just friends. That word, girlfriend, stuck with her. She felt a little twang in her heart. She wondered if this whole week had been some sort of game. He had played along the whole time, waiting for her to sort out her situation with Dean, but he never stopped taking care of her. She was a fool to believe they could be anything else but lovers. Maddy sighed in contentment. The sound of his heartbeat beneath her ear was the last thing she remembered before she fell asleep.
Hey, thanks for listening to Heart of the Wolf by Mariposa. This concludes Book 1 or Season 1 as we call it on this channel. For the unabridged content, check out the print and ebook on Amazon or the audiobook on Google Play, iTunes, and other retailers. Season 2, Wolf Girl Running, will be released on November 21st, which happens to be my birthday. Yeah, I'm a Scorpio. Season 2 is gonna be fun. This storm is no joke. It knocked out power to the whole town, and it looks like a werewolf hunter has shown up, which is great timing, considering Maddy's about to change. Like and subscribe to this channel and be on the lookout for Season 2 in November. Leave a comment and let us know how you like the story. Don't be shy, we're around. And hey, spread the love and share this audiobook with your friends. I'm sure they'll like it too. Alright, stay out of trouble. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. See you in November.